Welcome to Deer Talk Now. I'm Brad Rooks. With me is Robie Pruitt from Antler King. Robbie's an expert on food plots, and I don't want to go into the normal stuff, Robbie. Let's talk about common mistakes, because we all make them. One, we were just talking a little bit about water, right?
Oh, yeah.
What does a guy do when we're in a drought?
You know, pretty much, you're going to pray to Mother Nature, like I said. I mean, there's not much you can do. The biggest mistake most people do is they think they want to water their plot. And 99% of the time, unless you have the equipment to do it, you're hurting it. You're not helping it. I mean, you're looking at most plots in a drought-type situation need a good inch of rain per acre. You're looking about 40,000 gallons of water. Most people don't have the equipment to do that. So when you start watering a plot, especially, let's say it's a freshly seeded plot, it's better for that seed to lay there dormant through that drought until Mother Nature gives you the moisture that you need. If you try watering that just with a little bit of water, you start that germination process, then you quit watering it, the seed just dies.
Yeah.
So that's the worst thing you can ever do. Just let Mother Nature take care of it. Sometimes the plot will not grow because you won't get any moisture through the year. But usually, I've had an instance where I've planted our honey hole in August, right before a rain, and we've been in a drought. And it's supposed to rain that night, did not rain. I went from August 15th with that being in the ground till the 3rd of October before I got my first half-inch of rain, and that plot still germinated and grew. Now, it didn't give me the tonnage that it normally would because it didn't have the growing time, but it still gave me the greens that the deer like. So just let that plot go and try to keep from watering it.
That exact situation happened to us last year. We could not get it on our plots, first off, because it was so wet. We just couldn't get the equipment on it to get it seeded, right? So we held off, finally could get the tractor down there, get it all in the ground, and then just no rain. And it germinated because there was enough moisture in the soil. And it was getting enough moisture, but not to really take off, right? So then September hit, and we started getting rain, and it grew. The deer were eating it. We just didn't have, like on the honey hole, we didn't have the big turnips that we're used to, right? But it still attracted deer throughout the entire season. We just didn't have, I always like the tonnage that it gives, especially the turnips for late season up here, right?
Yeah.
In Wisconsin, we're out of Wisconsin. A lot of people know that. You're out of Illinois. You come late season when there's snow on the ground, there's just not a lot of food, and those deer will dig through 2 feet of snow to get to the turnips.
Yes, they sure will.
I just didn't have that last year.
Nope.
Here's another common one that I was at fault in my early years, and I want you to explain why it's a bad thing, is I overworked my ground. Like, you always think you want, I wanted to be able to walk across it and go up to my ankles, right? You know what I mean? So why don't you want that?
Yeah, you don't want that powdery soil. And up here, it's very hard because you're a sandy soil, so you can get it real powdery in a hurry.
Yes.
Even where I'm at with good black dirt, you can do it. A lot of guys think they want to work that plot up to make it look like their garden. They want it to go in there and be able to hoe it out, plant the rows. And you want a good firm seed bed. So with me, I like this. I mean, if there's a couple different ways I can kind of talk about this. When you come more to clay type soil, you can get a hard pan in your soil, usually 8 to 10 inches deep, and it will not let the root system grow through it. So at that time, you want to go through there and you want to rip that soil up. Usually you're doing that once every 5-6 years. Now on the good black dirt, you don't get it so much. So if I can get a good root base going with the soil I have, I'm only working up soil about 1 to 2 inches deep. That's all I do. The deeper you rip it up, the more weed seed you're bringing up to the surface, the more weeds and grasses you're going to have. And then you're going to call me and think, why are you putting weed and grass seed in your food plot mix? Which we're not. It's just, it's in the soil. But the key thing to really look at here is when it comes to planting a food plot, anytime you work up the soil, you want to compact that soil before you seed. You always want to seed on a firm seed base. So if you got to call the packer, a roller, tire track it in with your ATV, your truck, your tractor, whatever, firm that soil up and then plant your seed.
Now, what happens when a guy doesn't do that?
What normally happens is, let's say you go, let's take our trophy clover right now. A lot of guys are planting trophy clover right now. You got pencil lead type seeds. So if you got a loose seed bed, them seeds you do not want them over 1/4 inch deep. So me personally, I broadcast them small seeds right over the top. I let Mother Nature set them in. If you don't have a firm seed bed, what's going to happen? You get a good heavy rain, it pushes them seeds all the way down deep, you lose germination, and you're done.
Yeah, and that's true for any type of plant. You
Anytime.
never make sure you check out whatever you're planting, right, and check out what the maximum seed depth
Absolutely.
is, because if you go deeper, you're not going to get the germination, you're not going to get the growth,
Right.
and every seed's a little bit different, correct?
Yeah. It's all different. And with us, I mean, we really push seed depth so much that if you get on our website or our catalogs, anything, we have a chart that actually has all of our seed blends and tells you exactly how deep to plant them. Now you get into soybeans, stuff like that, our red zone mix with the peas and soybeans, you're looking half inch or so. Our barricade, which is a shield product, you're getting about 3/4 inch, no more than that. Just because it says 3/4 inch don't mean you have to get it at 3/4 inch. So it's better. I'd rather have it at 1/4 inch than 3/4, because depending on how you did your seed bed.
Yeah.
So
and the other thing is, if you're going to broadcast, right, a lot of guys don't have the equipment.
No.
So they broadcast all that, which is fine. But I'm going to tell you one thing that you got to think about is up here, it's Canadian geese.
it is. Oh yeah.
Man, if you broadcast, you'll have a flock of geese in there. They'll eat all your seed just like it's standing still, or turkeys.
They are, and with us, I mean, our turkeys, we got turkeys like crazy. But I'll tell you something that a lot of people are really getting into now. I've been into it for a long time, and that's called the pack in your soil. So if anybody's listened to me ever, they always hear me talk about you compact your soil, you seed, and then you compact again. So compacting that soil after you seed will help push them seeds in, which kind of helps with that a little bit. But the key thing you want to watch is a lot of guys that go out there and find a farmer that has an old call-the-packer in his backfield, and they go and cut it up in 4 or 5 foot chunks. Well, that thing might weigh 1,500 pounds. You can get too heavy with a call-the-packer. So watch what you're doing with a call-the-packer, because depending on your soil, sandier soil, you don't want a 1,000-pound call-the-packer on it.
Sure.
When I run a call-the-packer, I use our Packer Max, which is about, you're looking anywhere from 400 to 600 pounds, depending on how much water you put in it. And to me, and black soil, that's all you need. I got away with using the heavier ones because I had more issues using the heavier call-the-packers in black soil.
See, there's one I didn't even know.
Yep.
I thought you packer is a packer,
Yeah,
right?
you can pack it too tight, and I mean really get it too tight where the root system will not grow out like it should, as easy as it should.
Because the ground's so hard,
ground's so hard.
right? It just can't penetrate like
Absolutely.
it would like to.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. So let's go to that guy that is broadcasting. If he doesn't have a packer, right? So I broadcasted. I already packed it. Should he drive across that again?
Yep.
So
I mean,
you use your ATV.
Use your ATV, tire track it in, and I'd done it for years before I got my first call-a-packer. I just take, back then it was my old 3-wheeler, and I'd follow my tire tracks back and forth and just pack it in.
Yep, which makes sense. I did the exact same thing. It's kind of
Yep.
funny. Let's talk a little bit about weed control, because you mentioned something right away, and I laughed because we have reed canary grass, right?
Yep.
It's the disdain of everybody that lives in Wisconsin. It's just nasty stuff, gets tall. You'd think that it's got tons of cover, and it does right up until it freezes, and then it all lays flat, and it looks like you have a wide open field, right?
Exactly.
So the deer don't really use it. Let's talk about some of the control methods of controlling some of these weeds. What is your favorite? What do you like to do?
It depends on what it's for. So let's say, I'm a diehard clover guy, so I like keeping my clover plots as lush as I can. So the same way, I'm a cheap guy as well. So usually mowing wise, I will use a mower to take care of a lot of my grass and weed control. If it gets too bad, that's when I switch over to the select herbicides. So I use clethodim for grass control. I use Boot Rack 200, which is a 2,4-DB. It has to have that B on the end of it, or you kill it all. Them are two select herbicides. The cleth will kill the grass. The 2,4-DB will kill the weeds. So now you can get into the money where you can spray both at the same time with a product called IMOX. IMOX is a very good one. Very, very expensive. But you can take clethodim at your local Rural King. You can get your 2,4-DB at your local Rural King, Fleet Farms, anything like that, like you guys have up here. Very inexpensive, and a 2.5 gallon jug of both of them will last me 7-8 years because you're not mixing that much in there.
Sure.
And it'll really help out. The good thing about it is now, like with us, with our liquid fertilizers, like our Clover Fuel and our Jolt, you can mix them right in with your herbicide and spray it as a one pass. So you're actually helping the plant, because even though it's a select herbicide, it will not kill the clover. It will stun it for a week or two.
Sure.
You'll see it kind of turn yellow, kind of wilt over a little bit, and then it bounces back. So when you start putting that 4-wheeler fertilizer with it, it shortens that time period up.
Which makes sense. And 2,4-B, just to clarify a little bit, that's for broadleaves,
That's
right?
for broadleaf.
Yeah.
Yes, that is for broadleaf.
Any type of your broadleaves, and if you're wondering what kind of weed you have, there are so many cool apps out there where you can actually take a picture, and it tells you, if it's broadleaf or if it's a grass family, and then you know what herbicide to use.
I have one of the apps on my phone, and I'll tell you what, every year something pops up that I've never seen in one of my plots, and it's strange. I mean, we just get different things, and there's a lot of them I got to use the app for. Pretty slick.
Now, you mentioned a little bit about fertilizer. Let's get on to so I got my seed bed in. I got the plants are growing, just starting. When should I fertilize?
I always fertilize. If it's going to do a granular, I fertilize prior to tilling.
Okay.
So I will, because I want, so let's say you're looking at honey hole like you like using. Honey hole loves nitrogen. So you take a nitrogen-based fertilizer, you lay it on the ground, the nitrogen will evaporate out of it. So if you work it into the soil, it keeps from losing the money you're throwing on the ground, and it breaks down quicker. So I always apply my granular fertilizer prior to planting when I till. And then with my foliar fertilizers, my liquids, I'm coming back. I like to see 2 to 3 doses per growing season for a customer to use, but with me, I spray the heck out of it because they only benefit. That's the good thing. And picking the proper fertilizer for the species you're planting is huge.
Yeah, especially anything that eats nitrogen, right?
Absolutely.
What I loved about your granular strategy, right, where you put it in the ground, just like your seed bed, if it doesn't really rain, that doesn't really leach deep into the soil either.
It does
so
not.
You get your plants in there. Now it rains. Now it releases all the nitrogen. The plants want the nitrogen. It's a win-win situation. Right?
Absolutely.
Why should a guy fertilize? I know the answer, but I want you guys to know because I have a lot of neighbors, and I told you they do not fertilize. They just don't put the money into their plants. Let's face it, we're all hunters. We're all cheap, right?
Right.
So once it's out of the ground, they're just thinking it's green. That's good enough for the deer.
Yep. What happens if we quit eating?
Yeah.
It's the same way with the plant. If we don't eat, we're not going to grow, and you're not healthy. You're unhealthy. So a plant's the same way. You want to look at it. That's a living species that needs food, and the fertilizer is where it gets its food from. Now, don't get me wrong. There is, depending on what's been planted for over the years, there is nutrients in the soil already. But a lot of the guys that don't use fertilizer, they're not checking their soil anyway, so they don't know what's in there. There might not be anything. It could be completely depleted out. So like with us, we recommend, we go pretty much, when we test the product, we kind of go mediocre on nutrients in a soil bed. So if you look at a bag of honey hole, you'll look, 150 pounds, 200 pounds per acre of triple 19. That's what we tested with, and that gave us our best results. So when I say best results, I mean the plant as lush as it can be, healthy as it can be, and the most tonnage. So if you want the most tonnage out of a plot, and the most, depending on the plot, if it's a clover plot, you want the most protein. If you're looking at honey hole, you want the most energy. That fertilizer is going to feed that plant to give it the most tonnage and the most nutrients it can give.
What's really cool about that too is not only is what does a healthier plant have, right? It's sweeter. And the deer can tell the difference.
Right.
It's no different to us than eating our apples or whatever. Right. The ones that are properly fertilized and taken care of, they taste better. They're better, and that's why the whitetails will kind of gravitate towards you. So if you have a neighbor that's not fertilizing, man, you got the opportunity to steal all of his deer.
Well, you have that, and just like fertilizing is a good thing. Let's just jump to your pH of your soil. The pH of your soil is more important than fertilizer. So I get calls all the time. I planted your honey hole. I planted your grade 8. The turnips grew up. They were like softballs. They were soccer balls. Deer won't eat them. Well, what was your pH? I don't know. You fertilized? No. That's why. They'd be the most beautiful looking plant there ever, but unless that pH is up to turn that plant sweet, it never will, and that deer will not touch them.
Deer Talk Now is brought to you by Mossberg. Mossberg has been supplying American hunters with quality firearms for over 100 years. Over the years, they've upheld their commitment to innovation by creating a handful of firearms that have shaped the way we hunt today. For more information, visit mossberg.com.
Let's talk. You kind of hit the soil test, right? I mean, I don't know why guys don't do it. It's not expensive, right?
It's the cheapest thing and the most important thing.
Yeah, and it's super easy to tell. You take it to the feed mill can do it, and basically they'll give you what your soil has in it.
Absolutely.
And then if you tell them what you're going to plant, they'll tell you what you need for fertilizer.
They tell you exactly what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly what to make that plant as healthy as it can be.
So for us hunters, right, because a lot of us are not really up, we don't have the farming background.
Mm-hmm.
Man, here you go. You just got the information you need from an expert to have
Right.
the healthiest plot
Yeah.
available, right?
Yeah, and even if a person don't want to take the time to take a soil test, to take it to a co-op, which usually costs like $10-15, no big deal. That's the cheapest thing you're going to have. With us, we have our pH test kit. It's not going to tell you the nutrient level, but it's going to tell you the pH. And a lot of people look at, I'm not going to test my pH, I'm just going to add more fertilizer. Well, the pH is what determines how much fertilizer is going to be used. So if you look at a 5.5 pH soil and you don't put any lime to it, it stays at a 5.5, you put the recommended rate of fertilizer down, then plants can only utilize about 38% of that. So the rest of it is money wasted on the ground, where that $15 test that you could do, we'll give it 100%. Yeah.
Neil Doherty, from a friend of ours from many years ago, he gave me this analogy, and it was just so, opened up my eyes. And he said pH is like a water spigot. When the pH is not correct, the spigot's kind of shut. Water's still coming out, plant's still getting little, right?
Yep.
But it's just not getting as much.
Nope.
When the pH is correct, it's full bore. It's
Absolutely.
full stream, so the plant is getting everything it needs out of the ground, right? All
Absolutely.
the fertilizer, it sucks it right up, and that's what makes it healthier.
Yep.
So that's why it's so important.
Absolutely.
Man. So one thing at this time of year, I'm starting off with a brand new plot. I want your recommendation. I don't care what we're planting. What's my first step? Is it determining what I want to plant first, or what would you do if I have a brand new food plot?
The very first thing I want you to do is check the pH of that soil and see what your pH is.
Okay.
Because let's say, and I get it a lot up here, let's just say it's a logging road. Say I got a logging road I want to plant. I'm getting enough sun, but not as much for a premium mix. And like with us, we have our Game Changer and No Sweat, which is going to be 2 mixes that you can plant in a shaded area, and it will grow down into low pH. But if that pH, the higher that pH is, closer to neutral, the more tonnage and the sweeter and more healthier that plant's going to be. So even though it will grow down in a low pH, if you just add some lime, it's going to be a lot better plant. It's going to be a lot more tonnage for you. So I always tell people, no matter what you're planting, where you're planting, shaded area, sunny area, wherever you're going to plant, check that pH and get that pH up, so then plants can utilize the fertilizer that you're going to give to them.
So that's my first step. I'm going to check my pH. I realize it's a little bit low. What do I have to do if it's low?
You're going to need to add some lime.
Okay.
So myself in the food plot world, I use pelletized lime. Now, if I have a big plot that I can actually get an ag truck into, it's the cheapest way ever to have them come spread ag lime. But the pelletized lime, you're only using 1/10 of the amount. So the smaller plots, you're not in there killing yourself trying to put thousands and thousands of pounds of lime down when you can use a pelleted lime at a 1/10.
And it reacts faster, right?
And it reacts faster. Now, it doesn't stay as long. I mean, it breaks down quicker. It doesn't last as long. But with most of us guys in the food plotting world, especially when we're using brassicas will destroy your soil. You're always putting lime on because they're just sucking it out of it.
Yeah.
So, but now like clover plots, a lot of times, even using the pelleted lime, the clovers don't destroy the soil as much, or more of a soil builder. So you don't have to apply it as much then.
Sure.
So usually you can go a few years without having to worry about it. I still test it every year, but you don't usually have to apply any.
Yeah, and when you talk about egg lime, I mean, most of those trucks are thousands of pounds
Oh, yeah.
that you're putting on. Just
Yeah.
So a guy with a little half-acre plot, he's never going to get to that.
He's not going to get to that.
Yeah,
No.
and there is, like, you can get a ton of it dropped at your
Yeah,
location, and then you got to figure out how to spread it.
How to spread it.
And it's hard to spread, right? Because it sucks up moisture a little bit,
Yep.
so it's hard to spread unless you have a lime spreader. So.
Absolutely. So, and the pelleted lime, it just works so much easier using on back of an ATV or even a bag spreader. I mean, if a person wants to really get at it, they can just use a hand seeder spreader. But if you got anything on back of a tractor or on an ATV or something like that, works really well.
Yeah, exactly. How about liquid calcium? That seems to be the rage here. What's your opinion on it?
I'm not a fan.
Okay.
I'm just going to say that. I've done a lot of testing on liquid calcium, and what I have learned, and now I'm not saying there's not a company out there that has one that is absolutely better than others, but what I have learned, I actually went to 10 different great big farmers in my area, and asked them what they thought of liquid calcium. And they said, if it will do what they say it will, for the price it will, and us farmers could save money, every farmer would be using it, and not one of them 10 use it.
Really?
So that just answered my question. If a farmer can't save money and use it, that was my testing was over. Now, that's been 5 or 6 years ago. So there's other stuff on the market these days. We've looked into a product similar to it, but with us, just like our food plot mixes, we got to have a proven product that we know that's going to perform for the customer and the deer. We have not found in a liquid calcium yet that will do that for us to carry.
Okay.
And we're not going to do it till we find it. So we just stick with telling people lime, ag lime, pelleted lime. And but again, not saying there's not one out there that will.
Yep.
But it's just we haven't found it yet.
The big thing too is if you can fix your soil, especially you get it to the correct pH, it's easy to maintain it at that correct pH. Right?
It is. It's very easy to maintain it. Yes.
Yeah. The hard part is getting it up to that level, but once you're there, you can do it.
Well, you can look at like our Plot Max, our soil conditioner. A lot of people really think that is a pH enhancer. It does say on there it enhances your pH, but it also tells you it's very short-lived. And that's what we have found with a lot. And our soil conditioner is only humic acid. The humic acid it will spike your pH and get your plants green as a gourd, looking really good. But it's short-lived. It's not made for that. It's actually to break down the soil. So, and a lot of the liquid calciums that I have found actually had percentages of nitrogen added to them. So when you spray it, man, them plants green up like crazy.
Sure.
Well, I don't want the nitrogen, and I'm trying to raise my pH.
Yeah.
So that's just my take on it. Again, there could be some products out there that work awesome that I haven't found yet, but I just haven't found it yet.
Sure. So we got that new plant or new plot, and I checked the pH, and let's pretend, which it's never going to be, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Like I really don't have to do anything. Maybe put a little bit of pelletized lime on it. What's my next step?
Pretty much weed and grass control if you have any in it. Getting the plot killed off, working the soil. That's the big thing, depending on how nasty that plot is. I like to either kill and burn off, or at least kill and then work up here. I love working the grass and weeds in just for the organic matter in the sandier soil.
Yep.
Do that a lot. Back home where I'm at, the organic matter is not such a key. We retain moisture pretty well, so I'll usually, in areas that I can, I'll burn them off.
Okay.
And but at least spray, kill that area off, and then come back in a minimum 7 days to work the soil. Yep.
If I'm a hunter and I can only plant one plot, what would you recommend?
Clover.
Clover?
Our trophy clover mix. I mean, you want the deer to have something there 12 months out of the year. A lot of people look at clover and say, clover's just going to wilt over and die, and the fall time of year you're not going to have any food. Well, when you look at a good forage clover, a premium forage clover like we only use, and we're one of the, not very many of us in the industry that do it, but we always use cool season seeds. So the cool season seeds will allow that plant to stay green even with 3 foot of snow over it. It's dormant, it's not growing, but it doesn't wilt over and die. Now, some people argue with me, well, mine wilted over and die. Then you get back to what was your pH? Do you fertilize? The plant's not healthy. If that plant is healthy, it's going to stay green, and them deer will dig through that snow certain times of the year, just like they will the honey hole, to eat that green forage. They want that green lush plant. Yeah. Even though it's dead, they're still going after it.
And the beauty with clover, right? High protein.
High protein.
So if you're looking for something to really make your whitetails healthy,
absolutely
high protein.
And a good forage variety like our trophy clover, you're looking at about 10 tons per acre of forage and about a 30% protein. If your pH is up there and you're giving them the nutrients they need, that's what you can obtain out of it after starting in about the second year.
So if a guy can only plant one plot, you would say clover.
Clover.
Let's go with a guy that can plant like 3 smaller plots. Maybe I have 100 acres and I can plant 3 acres of food. What would be your mix? What would you like to see in that?
You're definitely going to want the clovers for the high protein. Then you're definitely going to want the high energy. So depending on, like up here, definitely the honey hole, something like that's going to be great. The slam dunk's going to be great. Then you can even look into our grade 8 mix, which is a mixture of our honey hole, slam dunk, fall, winter, spring, and lights out. So that's where you got that 8 species in there. Worked great. Now you get in south, somewhere like that, completely different. You're getting in more of your cereal grains, your peas, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it just depends on region where you're at. The warmer climate, you're going to kind of steer the climate. You're going to steer away from them brassicas as much. Now we started using a lot of collard greens here lately in a lot of different mixes, and even by the pound. Collard green is a plant that does not take a frost to turn sweet. So it's sweet and palatable as soon as it starts growing. So that's a brassica we use a lot down in Alabama, Georgia, Florida.
Sure.
Use collard greens a lot down there.
It's kind of interesting where you mentioned that. I assumed, right, being out of Wisconsin, and I hunted with people that had food plots, and that's why I started them with turnips. And you assume that they won't eat them till they get cold and freeze.
No, they eat them.
Man, once you have it established and they know
Yep.
it's a food source, those things
Yep.
will eat that thing way before it freezes.
Well, and the funny thing about it is, a lot of people will start complaining, saying, "Hey, I used to plant this, a deer would not ever touch it," going right back to the pH and the fertilizer. Well, what are you doing different now than you were? Well, I really got into checking my soil, building my soil, getting it right. That plant is healthier, sweeter. Them deer are going to hit it hard. Now, if that pH is low and you're getting some bulbs, the deer won't hardly touch it at all until it gets a frost on it.
Yeah.
So it just, again, going back to a healthier plant.
Which makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
And even though I say they're going to eat it, they're not like pulling the bulbs out. They're just taking little nips here
Yep.
and there,
Yep.
but they're definitely eating it.
Absolutely.
I can remember planting. One of my mistakes was I planted a big brassica plot. And had it in a spot that we only late season hunted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, it's early season. And I'm just sitting here watching all the deer eating that plot, and the winds are going to be wrong. And I'm like,
Right.
all right, well, now I got a plot in the wrong spot that the deer are definitely attracted to, and no way to hunt it,
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
So, yeah.
Yep.
So let's give that a little bit of thought. Any kind of recommendations, like for what you're looking for a setup in a plot?
Yeah, there is. That probably one of the biggest mistakes beside checking your pH is plot placement. A lot of people will find a piece of property, and they just like, I'm the same way. I know how it is. I'll go into an area. I'm like, well, there's an open area. That'd be a great place for a plot. Not thinking about my prevailing winds, if I can get to and from that plot without deer detecting me. I plant the plot and then get closer to season. I'm like, oh man, I can't hang a stand here. Always look around. Even though it's going to take a little more elbow grease, find a spot that you can get into and out of. Check your prevailing wind, what you normally have, and set the plot up that way.
Yeah, you're exactly it. I mean, like a lot of us look at convenience, right?
Yes.
Oh, here's a nice open spot.
Yep.
I can plant a plot here, but you're not thinking about come fall. And when
Right.
you do make that mistake, and I've made it personally
Right.
a couple different times, and literally you have the best looking food plot in the world. The deer are attracted to it, and other than shooting them with a gun, I have
Right.
no way to bow hunt over it.
Absolutely.
And that's the other consideration, right? When you want to hunt, are you a bow hunter or are you a gun hunter? Because
Yeah,
your
exactly.
strategy can be totally different on that front.
Right. And well, and another thing too, and I never thought of this and really looked into it until I lived up here in Wisconsin for a couple of years. I was going out consulting a lot of different places, and people wanting to put in food everywhere they could. I'm a diehard guy when it comes to giving the deer all the food they can. But if you got a spot that you're just wanting to use it for a hunting property, you can plant too much food.
Yeah.
Because I've had so many people wanting logging roads done, and they'd have miles of logging roads, and they'd want everything planted and then wonder why they don't see deer at their plot down at the end of it. Well, they're on them logging roads feeding where they feel secure. So really look on how you're wanting to hunt this property, or you just wanting to feed the deer, because them deer love them old logging roads where they feel safe and secure instead of getting out in one of them open plots. So
yeah, up here in Wisconsin, right where we are, it's a lot of ag, just like you are in Illinois.
Absolutely.
And I always tell people, look at what your farmers plant too,
Yep.
because if it's a bean field, he's probably going to harvest those by the end of September,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Early part of October. So that whole food source just went away. If the deer were going out there and eating, and I can have some sort of greens, either your
Yep.
honey hole or even clover, whatever it is, those deer that were all out in his bean field eating all
Yep.
summer long are probably going to migrate over to
in
my
there.
plot.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's that kind of strategy as well.
Absolutely. Yep.
And now with the drone technology, right?
Oh,
I mean, it's easy
ridiculous.
to see what all of your neighbors are doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So one tip that you can give any type of new hunter to food plots. That's how we're going to end it.
If it's for planting food plots, check your pH.
That's the biggest
number
thing?
one tip. That is the cheapest thing you can do and the most important for a successful food plot.
There you go. That's from Robbie. This is Brad Rooks. Welcome to Deer Talk Now, or thanks for listening to Deer Talk Now. Till next week, Join us again for another great show.
The Deer Talk Now podcast is brought to you by Mossberg, Wildlife Research Center, Traditions Firearms, Outdoor Edge Knives, Hoyt Archery, and 10 Point Crossbows.